All right, Nick, combine season is here. The underwear Olympics is underway. We got the NFL draft coming up, but that just means off season in general is about to start. Free agency is about to start. And I think that is where some of the biggest questions for the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be answered. There's a lot of guys on this roster. Patrick Mahomes' money is kind of coming into play now, but we've realized that it's probably not going to be a factor. He can win with anybody on this team. But now we got to look around the board. How are some of these fringe edge guys going to pan out? What kind of moves are the Chiefs looking at making? We have a story today that I think the Chiefs fans are really going to like.
Yeah, Miles. But before we get into that story, Chiefs fan, obviously this organization with Brett Veach, Andy Reid, one of the smarter, frankly, probably the smartest organization over the last half decade or so, made a lot of really smart moves, both in free agency and in the draft and through trades. Give us the one move in the comment section below that you think was the smartest, the savviest move the Chiefs have made over the past 5-10 years or so. Whether it's a trade, a signing, whatever it may be, let us know what you think the smartest Chiefs move has been in the comment section below. But all right, Miles, what you got? What's the latest out of Kansas City?
Yeah, Nick, as we mentioned, combine is going on. And when everyone gets together at the combine, people compare notes, rumors, stuff starts to stir up, and then some information kind of gets out. And over on ESPN, insiders Jeremy Fowler and Dan Graziano kind of have released a couple of pieces of information that they feel are pertaining to the Chiefs. And I'll get into the first two, which I think are probably not the most important to the Chiefs, but that seems as if the Chiefs are going to move on from wide receiver Mecole Hardman and Juan Thornhill, safety. So those are two moves that I think, were inevitable. They had to make some cuts somewhere. But the two things I think are big for the Chiefs are, number one, Nick, it seems as if the Chiefs will franchise tag Orlando Brown Jr. at the left tackle position. He really did well last year. I think just overall, he was an okay player. I think the Chiefs' upgraded offensive line really kind of has helped them through this Super Bowl win. And you look at the left side, Brown, 75.4 PFF grade for the season, not too shabby. Down the line, Thuney and Smith were great. Humphrey really has been a superstar. So I just think that getting a guy like this locked up for one more year, the Chiefs' window's still open. They have plenty of more Super Bowl aspirations to go forward with, Nick. But this is the first big move. What do you think about this move for the Chiefs?
Yeah, so a franchise tag is essentially buying yourself time, right? For people who aren't familiar, the franchise tag is basically just a one-year deal, and it puts that player into, I think, the top 5 or 10% of salaries at that position group. So there's no negotiation. The team just applies the franchise tag, and that's what the player gets paid. And I think the franchise tag for offensive linemen is $18.25 million. So that's what Orlando Brown's going to be owed against the cap going to 2023. And that's not too high. That's around top 7, top 8 in the NFL, according to overthecap.com. Why I think this is a smart move, Mize, is that you use the short-term solution to buy yourself time in terms of building your roster with positions you know how to draft and develop, right? Because you have Orlando Brown. He's a good player. You don't want to just let him walk. But at the same time, you want to give yourself time to develop and draft his replacement potentially. And what is the one position the Chiefs have knocked out of the park in the draft, right? It's the offensive line. You mentioned Creed Humphrey, legit superstar. How about Trey Smith? I really liked Darian Kennard last year, guy they picked up. He may eventually be Orlando Brown's replacement. Who knows? The Chiefs have done an absolutely outstanding job when it comes to drafting, evaluating, developing offensive linemen. And they don't get them like top, first round picks necessarily. Some of these guys were later in the draft. So again, they don't just need to use a high amount of draft capital to potentially replace Orlando Brown down the road, because they're so good at finding the diamonds in the rough, getting guys the second, third, fourth round, and eventually developing them into starters. That's why I think it's a really smart move, that you don't want to overpay and spend a lot of money on a position you know how to draft and develop anyway. Buy yourself some time so that way you can get that replacement ready, but you obviously just don't want to let Orlando Brown walk and put yourself in a bad situation in the short term either. So I think that's a really smart move from the Chiefs' perspective, considering how well they draft and develop the offensive line group.
Yeah, Nick. And another really big move for the Chiefs here is potentially moving off running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He was drafted, I believe, 32nd overall in that draft where he was picked up, first round pick. But it just seems as if it is time for a change of pace with the running back position with the Chiefs. I think we all agree potentially on this show that paying a running back big time money really isn't the way to go anymore. You seem to be able to pick guys up, and that's what the Chiefs have done. They've gotten Isaiah Pacheco. They had McKinnon. They have all these guys who are doing very, very admirably in the stead of Edwards-Helaire. So if they, on the final year of his rookie deal, are able to trade him and get some draft capital back for him, I think that would be a pretty big move for the Chiefs going forward. And it will hopefully be better for Edwards-Helaire because, quite frankly, he's kind of been edged out by some of these other backs that have emerged on the Chiefs roster. What do you think about the potential trade of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Nick?
Yeah, whatever you can get from doesn't really matter, right? They got Pacheco, in the 7th round. So they obviously, just like offensive line, the Chiefs seem to be able to draft every position really well. So if you're able to ship them off for pretty much nothing, if you get a 6th, 7th round draft pick at this point, I consider that a win. Because like you mentioned, Mize, paying running backs any sort of money is just stupid. Like obviously there's a lot of elite running backs. You have the Christian McCaffreys of the world who are dynamic players, but even McCaffrey, right? He has injuries, he gets beat up, he's missed a lot of time. Even stars early in their careers, Ezekiel Elliott's a great example. Superstar, leads the NFL in rushing twice, is carrying that Dallas offense. What happens? He gets a year older, injury set in, and suddenly he's just a shell of his former self, right? Not nearly as good, definitely not worth the money. So when it comes to the running back position in the NFL, the easiest thing to do, just don't pay them. Doesn't matter how good you are, doesn't matter how well they've done your program, doesn't matter how well they fit in the locker room. It's not worth paying him. And that's why I think moving off Edwards-Helaire right now is a really smart move for the Kansas City Chiefs, however they want to do it, especially since, like you alluded to, Miles, they've got other guys in McKinnon and Pacheco who can slide in right away and do a great job. And let's be honest, Edwards-Helaire, I think he's got a lot of good tools as an NFL running back, but he wasn't really worth the 1st round draft pick based on his performance throughout his career as a Kansas City Chief. So it makes sense from that perspective either. You're letting a guy move on who wasn't even really an important part of your offense to begin with. So from both sides, it just seems like the right move.